So with Veterans Day being last week, or this past Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. All right.
Yesterday.
It was yesterday. November 11th?
Yep.
What is today? I thought today
12.
was the 13th.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, so you're retired, so your days all blend together.
They're all Saturdays.
They're all Saturdays to you. But with Veterans Day, I kind of wanted to talk about that. I had talked about having you on the show. When was it? Earlier this summer. I had talked with Mom. I don't know if Mom even talked to you about it.
I think you and I had talked about it. I kind of just...
What, we were nervous?
Blew it off.
Yeah. Well, I got you here for this, and I thought, let's talk about your time in the service. You served in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. I know some of the story. I don't really know a ton of it, and so I thought, we'll talk about what you want to talk about, and we'll just see what happens. And I'm going to learn something along the way, and I think that's going to be fun. So let's start with just the beginning of it. I know the draft was going on. Yep. How did you end up going and end up in the service?
Well, I had
drafted or enlisted?
No, I was enlisted. You had to sign up for the draft when you were 18. I think you had to sign up for it. And Vietnam was going hot and heavy at that time, and I really... I didn't think about it much.
You didn't think about
as far as having to go. I knew that I would have to go if I enlisted in the Army, whatever, or got drafted. If you're drafted, you're going to be there for sure. But either way, that wasn't the deciding factor. And then I thought, well, with the schooling, and I used to work at you don't know him, but it was my great uncle Doc. He owned Hansen Machine, and I worked at Hansen Machine and as in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was on a punch press, which I hated. Cleaning dies with my grandpa, his Doc's brother. It was a greasy job. I mean, it was a good job. Tool and die was a good mm-hmm. job. And so Grandpa said, "Why don't you go to the service and go to school?" And so, I went down to the naval recruiter, and didn't hit me at the time, but I think the Navy, the Marine and the Navy recruiter, Marines are part of the Navy, and so they could stay in there together. And I mm-hmm. thought, well, I didn't think anything of it. I thought he didn't have a room by himself, so I didn't want to come over here. But I talked to them, and then they had said, well, here's a pamphlet. I got a little book, and I went through it. And there was tool and die making. There was electrician, a lot of different schooling. And really didn't know what I wanted. But then I thought, well, I'm going to enlist. And so I was 17, I think it was. I thought I was 18. I was 17, and I could not enlist.
Okay. And
so I had to wait until I was 18. I had to wait a month, I guess, after I got out of school. And I did go back and I enlisted. And they gave me my time I had to be there for boot camp was in October 3, I think it was, 3 or 4, in 67. And by the time I went, I was going, looking at it, and then we had to go to Detroit with a group for physicals and things like that. And I passed the physical, obviously. And we sat down again.
Obviously, you've got the Hansen physique.
Exactly, right, exactly.
Physical specimen.
Not real bright up on top, but
no, but we're physically
sound. But then I was walking. He said there was this guy that came in, an officer. Yeah. All I saw was gold on his hat. And I thought,
does that mean he's important?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Turned out he wasn't. But he said, here's this catalog or little book that you go through it and look and see what you really want to do. Well, then he came back and he said to me, he said, okay, now you, and you. He picked 4 of us. Yeah. You're going to be corpsman.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I said. What's a corpsman? Well, it's a medical, and they do the medical things, work in a hospital, naval hospital, ship. And I said, well, okay. And so then I had to go to boot camp. and I went to boot camp.
So Vietnam is cooking right now.
Oh, it's cooking.
Okay,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff happening.
All kinds of stuff happening, and never thinking that was a corpsman, you're going to go any place other than Naval Hospital.
So
Naval
that's what you
Hospital ship.
anticipated.
Well, that's what I anticipated, but it was, I
When
didn't
does the
know.
schooling part kick in?
Well, I had to go to boot camp. I think it was a 12-week boot camp, and graduated from boot camp. I could march. I could, follow orders, and then I had to go to school. It was a Class A school. We called it Corps School. It was Hospital Corpsman School, and medical. And so we did the medical training and testing and learning. They told us you could be a registered nurse after the service if you went to school for another year.
Okay.
I thought, well,
You didn't want to do that.
didn't want to do that. And but I got through that, and then they said, you're going to go to a naval hospital. And so I got out, and I came home on leave. But then
How long were you there in the boot camp? part of things?
boot camp was 12, 13 weeks, if I remember right, 14 weeks.
So you're doing all kinds of physical stuff
That's
too?
physical
like boot camp,
stuff,
like
yeah.
what we
Well,
see in the movies.
Somewhat.
You're crawling
The
through
Navy,
dirt and
no, the
stuff.
Navy was a little different because you had to
What did
learn.
you do in the Navy?
You had to learn how to tie knots.
Are you making a joke, or is that
No,
real?
no, you had to learn how to tie knots, and then they have at the boot camp, and we went to San Diego a couple of years ago, and the boot camp is closed, but they had a big wooden ship, the Nimitz,
Okay.
named after the admiral in World War II hero. and
Admiral
whatnot.
Nimitz, I bet.
Admiral Nimitz.
Yeah.
And they had a boat. I call it a boat. And so you had to learn how to do that and that. But again, I didn't pay much attention because I was going to the medical school after boot camp.
So you weren't kind of phoning
I
it in.
just kind of blew it off,
Okay.
Knots.
Did you learn your knots?
No.
Is that for when you capture people?
No. The Navy ties a lot of knots.
I know. For the ships, the boats.
The ships, the boats.
Just, pastimes, hobbies.
Hobbies, clothesline. You wash your clothes every night on tables outside the barracks, and then you have to tie them on the line in a square knot.
Tie your clothes on the line?
Mm-hmm.
You tie your clothes in a knot on the line.
Square knot.
Don't they get wrinkled?
No.
Okay.
Well, they just hang, and then, of course, you got to iron them,
Oh, okay.
all that
Gotta
stuff.
iron 'em.
But we had to tie them in knots in a square knot, and our drill instructor, he was an E7, and we had to call him, I don't forget what it was. I know what I
This
called
is
him.
something that children might listen to.
Yes, I know. I knew what I wanted to call him, but
Yeah.
but chief. He
Oh,
was naval chief,
That
Navy
works.
chief, and but he would come in the morning early, and if it's not tied in a square knot,
Your laundry.
my laundry, our laundry, it'd be on the ground.
He'd throw it on the ground.
Well, you'd untie it, and poof, down it goes.
Okay.
I think I graduated boot camp, and the last time I had a wash, I think I did manage to keep the clothes on the line.
Okay, so you pulled that off.
I
You paid
could.
enough
I
attention to
do
keep the
know
clothes
how
on
to
the line.
tie a square knot, although I've got to think about it.
Yeah. That's fair.
I can't tie anything else. And there was another thing that I'll go into it later. But then I went to Corps School, and that was at San Diego Balboa Naval Hospital, biggest naval hospital there. We had right by the zoo and different things. We could walk over there because we could get Liberty now, and that was, I don't remember. It was longer training because it's all
That's
class,
medical training.
Medical training, yes. Class
You've got
work.
no medical background. You were
no
punching,
medical-
punching guys and stuff
Yep, and have no medical background. I could put a Band-Aid on.
at that point.
Yeah, on my finger. No.
By the time you were done?
By
By
the
the time you
I
were
was
done, you could
done,
put a Band-Aid on.
No, but when I went, I could put a Band-Aid on. But I didn't do it right because, you got to put it on and then you take
Square
it off.
knots.
And no, you got to take it off and don't touch the little felt part.
Oh, yeah.
I do that all the time. I still do it.
You're not good at Band-Aids.
No, not whatsoever. And so I got that, and we just had basic training. And then I ended up I had a hospital duty there at El Balboa, but then I went to Long Beach Naval Hospital, and that was a brand new hospital at the time, and we had the barracks. They were like a apartment, two to a room, and all these other people are living in bunks and everything. We got rooms, colored TV,
Wow, you're living-
not in the room. But
Color TV's new at that point.
Yeah,
relatively,
yeah,
right?
But they had it in the big lounge area. Yeah. We had a club because I was 18, so I couldn't do any drinking.
Yeah.
In
so
the
you
Navy.
did not tying and stuff like that.
No,
Not
I
tying
no,
club?
I did not. We went on Liberty. We went to the zoo, watched the monkeys and everything else. Just had normal good time, and it was a long time in school, like 12, 13, 14 weeks. We had a book like this. You had to learn. It was all training, and then after I graduated from there, they shipped me my orders, and it says Camp Pendleton, California, 5th Marine Tank Battalion, and I thought, oh, let's see here. I enlisted in the Navy, and I didn't want to pound gravel, we used to say, for 2 years in the Army. And now I'm going to pound gravel for 3 to 4 years in the Marine Corps. Okay. Makes perfect sense to me.
So when you enlisted, is there a certain time frame that you thought you were in for?
It was 4 years. It was a 4-year enlistment.
4 years no matter what.
Yes. And my dad, Grandpa, he didn't know I was going to the Marine Corps.
Grandpa didn't. Was he surprised?
Oh, yeah.
Was everybody concerned at that point?
Well, because we didn't know. Well, then I learned and know now that the Marine Corps is part of the Navy. Now, the Marines think that they're it, and they are, but they're the Navy's ground forces. And so that's why they're on ships. They're guarding ships if they have to. They switch because they're part of the Navy. So when I got there, they said, okay, now here you are. You're going to do this. And so I had, I worked in a dispensary. I learned how to shoot X-rays. I was an X-ray shooter at the hospital. But then you'd go out on bivouac now with real toys, tanks. We had.
You're still in the U.S.
I'm in the U.S. Pendleton. And we'd go out there for 2 weeks in the field, and train and train and train. And I even got to drive a tank. The commander of
You got to drive a tank?
Mm-hmm. The commander of the tank.
Could you reach the pedals?
Yeah, I could. I had blocks. But no, the lieutenant, he came and he said, Doc. That's what they called me.
They called
Doc.
you Doc.
They called me Doc.
That's really funny because
and
I've seen you try to do things.
I know it, and I'm not.
Doc, no.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to fix anything. I mean, I could fix.
No, even when you slice your fingers open.
Oh, yeah,
tape yourself up. It's
well, that's how you do it.
Animal.
You got to stop the bleeding.
That's what you learned in all those weeks.
That's what I learned. So
they called you Doc.
Yep,
I think
Doc.
that's hilarious.
I was the only one. Well, we had other corpsmen out there, but he said, Doc, do you want to drive a tank? Do you know how to drive it? Yeah. I was riding it. I got to shoot the cannon. I couldn't hit the mountain, but I got to shoot it. And and the sergeant and the tank commander.
Wasn't going to let you.
Lieutenant.
They knew you.
He is.
A little bit.
He's going to drive it. I almost totaled it out.
Really? That's tricky to total a tank, right?
I know. I just, the lieutenant says, okay, go back to your gun position.
Yeah, let's not drive
but I never drove it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't want to go to Vietnam in a tank.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks they're so safe. They're not.
You're stuck in it.
You're stuck, and there's a little hatch down at the bottom on the floor, about a 12-inch, 15-inch square. That's your escape hatch. Now you're coming out of the bottom of the tank, and the people know that they hit the tank, and they know you're
where
coming
the
out.
escape hatch is.
And so you ain't got a prayer.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
and I don't have a prayer because I was the littlest guy. I'm not going to be the first one out of that hatch. These bigger ones are going to beat me out, And but we survived that. And then that was about a year. But then I got my orders to Vietnam.
So what was that like? Were you engaged to Mom at that point?
I was engaged to your mother when I got my orders.
To go to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So how did that fly? How did the whole family take that when they heard you were going? How did you take that when you heard you were going?
It didn't set in. I mean, you weren't worried. You didn't think about it. Mom.
Was that generally how it was? Or was that
no,
how it was
well,
with you?
that was me because I just don't think about it. Yeah, I never did.
How did Mom do it? You started this.
Well, Mom, I believe I forget when that was. I was at Pendleton, I think, yet, when Mary Ann's husband, or
Mom's
not husband, your
sister's
mother's sister,
fiance
was killed in Vietnam.
Bob Westrate.
Yep. And he was killed, and he was driving a truck, for the Army, and it hit a landmine and whatever. I don't know all the details. That hit her and their side of the family.
Well, yeah, because all of a sudden it's real.
Yep. And so, but still, you were sad. And I knew Bob a little bit. I mean, he was a year older than me in high school, but her sister was in my class. And
Mom's sister?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't go home to the funeral. I didn't go. But when I got my orders, that was brutal.
For Mom, for the family.
The family.
How about your side of things?
Oh, my mom. She put in her head that he's going to be in a place in the rear, and Da Nang,
Okay.
whatnot, and that's what it was going to be.
She just focused on
and
something
she
positive,
focused,
and then that's
that
it.
was it. And Dad, I don't think knew, but your grandpa, but they were bad. No, my brothers,
They didn't go.
they didn't go. They didn't go into service, and so I mean,
And they never were drafted?
no, because
Obviously, right.
I'll back it up, because they changed the draft to a number system. I forget how many numbers it was. And I was home on leave. I think it was before I went to Vietnam. And I was home on leave, and I watched it. I said, well, wonder where I go on, how soon I'd go, get drafted. Brian, your Uncle Brian, he was way up in the numbers. Uncle Mike, way up in the numbers. Uncle Jim, he wasn't old enough to be in the draft.
So they all...
Me, I'm 8.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I thought, oh, crap.
you would have gone anyway.
I'm on my way, Well, I went. I flew off, and then we landed in Da Nang, and they said we got off the plane, and they said, run over to the bunker. There's information we're going to get mortared tonight.
So you land, and you're already in it.
Yep.
At that point.
But we didn't get hit.
No, but that's what you're thinking.
Yeah,
you go in
I
thinking
thought,
it's
wow.
coming.
Well, then I had to get in there, and then I got assigned to a cap unit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I went. It was the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force cap unit. And it was a combined action. And then my first patrol that I went on, I had to go at night, was where the Tet was.
What is that?
The Tet Offensive.
Okay,
The New Year's, Vietnamese New Year's thing. And the Viet Cong, NVA, they really hit hard. I wasn't there for it. But I had to go on patrol.
As a field medic? Is that
As a
what you were
field medic,
doing?
yeah, I was given an M16.
So you had a weapon.
I had a weapon. I had, in fact, a .45 caliber pistol also, because Corpsman would carry it.
Did you wear the little Red Cross thing?
No,
So you
they didn't have
insignia.
that. In fact, I had a caduce, and I had to take that off.
What's a caduce?
Well, it's a little medical thing.
yeah.
I had that, but then they didn't let you wear that.
Why?
Because of the Viet Cong or anybody,
They would target
see
you.
it. You'd target.
Okay.
And that's why with the red
It's a
cross
target.
on the bag. Yeah, and it is. But I had to go, and given the same thing to the Marines, you had to carry your pack, a 100 and some pound pack with all medical stuff, and we had to go on a patrol, scared spitless,
Yeah.
because you didn't know what was going to come.
How old are you at this point?
Well, I was 20. I went
20.
over there at 20. And so I did that. Well, then we went to our little unit, and it was 15 Marines and me. Then you had 15 Vietnamese reservists.
Mm-hmm.
They're just there. And they were all right, but yet not a Marine, not an Army guy. But we had those, and then that's where it was. I was there in Phu Bai for a little bit, and the Dinh Bon area, that was a hot spot.
So is that mostly jungle area? Is that it's not city, obviously. It's villages?
Dinh Bon, we were in the mountains,
Okay.
basically. And the mountains were back of us. And they used to call us the Keystone Cops, because we'd be chasing the Viet Cong, and then the next minute they're going to be chasing us.
Okay, just back and forth.
Just back and forth, and it's Keystone Cops.
How much fighting and all of that did you see? A lot? A little?
Not as much as a lot of people did, but enough for me.
Yeah.
You're guarding the village. You live in the village. The village is 65, 70% VC sympathizers. So you're living in, well, you don't know who your friends are. And it's eerie. You don't know. And of course, my sense of humor.
Pretty twisted.
I like to pick on people. But the village chief in the one area, Bin Key, we were at, he was Viet Cong. Well, sympathizer, but he had a radio. And so he could get on our tactical net, because it's a tactical radio, and tell them where we are. So we had to change up that and whatnot. It was a different situation.
So did you run into like traps and stuff like that?
Booby traps
see
we
those
used to
kinds of
have.
things?
Oh yeah, I had booby traps. We had a lot of toe poppers. You just take the front of your foot off.
Okay.
And I never hit a booby trap, but the people in
then
the unit,
you have to help people when
you're
that
on
happens.
them. You're on them. If
So-
they get hit, you're on them.
How did that go when that's got to happen?
I
Like,
didn't
the first
know
time that happened?
when I got on the plane
to go there.
to go there. I didn't know. How was I handling it? I had no
How
idea.
do you handle blood in general?
It doesn't bother me.
Okay.
It didn't bother. Well, it
Once
did.
I recover, once I come back to consciousness, I might be okay. But my first
no.
reaction is to.
No, I'm not going to go into
Please don't.
great detail, but if somebody gets hit, you're on them, and I can let you read the book, the citation, but you do what you got to do.
Well, I would think so. I think your training takes over,
yeah.
but also just the fact of the seriousness.
It's
of the
a
matter.
friendship.
I think even stumbling on an accident scene or something like that, when
that
happens, even here,
yeah,
people
exactly.
who don't have that ability all of a sudden get it because you realize the life.
And you know what not to do.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But yeah, there was stuff that went on, and of course I didn't see anything that other people didn't see, and then probably seeing more. But I just, you just go with.
You do what you got to do.
I remember one night I was on watch with Virgil Teskey. we were two peas in a pod. He was a Lance Corporal Marine, and I was an E4 at the time. And we were on watch, and I took the starlight scope. You could see at night. And it's not like you got now, but and when we walked out to the ambush site, the Vietnamese, it was almost like, and we didn't have garage sales at the time, but they were just hauling their furniture out. It'd be like a garage sale. Ooh, garage sale tomorrow. You said you didn't think that, but what's going on? Well, I was on watch. It was about midnight, and all of a sudden, the village is on fire, and the captain comes on the radio. He says, "What's going on?" "Don't know." He says, what is it? I said, "It looks like the village is on fire." "What are you going to do?" "Well, as soon as I hang up from you, I'll call the fire department." "What do you want me to do?"
Right.
He didn't like that. But he says, "You guys are Marines. You got to go in there." We did. But the Viet Cong had set the village on fire, and they knew.
What did you do then?
We went in.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you can't stop the fire, can you?
No, and they had one way in, and that was the main gate, and
Is that what they were waiting for?
where they're going to be. And we got in, no casualties. The fire they're just paper hat or hooches and whatnot, straw. They burn fast.
Yeah.
But they all knew that it was happening, but nobody said anything to us.
That's why they moved all their stuff out. Okay.
That's why they moved all their
They knew it
belongings.
was coming.
But the Viet Cong set the fire. But they would come in and, do damage to people and whatnot, who are sympathizers with us. But it was a different. You lived it. You know, everybody lives it, but you lived in there with them.
Yeah. What was the morale like in the group that you're in? I mean,
pretty good. Unless you got hit and you lost somebody, and things like that. You know, then it's not good.
Yeah.
In the morning, and then you're looking to, you know, do something to them, and you have to hold yourself back. But again, that's going into where I don't want to go.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, the little kids. I got pictures of little kids, and
that you got to know.
Mm-hmm. And you know, pig pen, garbage truck, we called them.
Yeah.
Just little ones, and you still see them in your mind.
Yeah.
And so I mean, you do get to know the people, but then you get moved around to different units.
Do you stay? Okay, so you get to know some people, like you mentioned, a Virgil guy.
Yep.
Do you hang with him the whole time, or you get
No,
split up
you've
as time
got
goes by?
well, you get split up sometimes.
Do you guys stay in contact? Do
Nope.
you? Okay.
I've never. When I went home, because I was in Vietnam, I guess the longest in my unit, and I went home. I was 21. I got to go home, but I was 21, and then you could buy alcohol at the PX. I was at the PX one time in my tour, and they wanted whiskey, and I could buy it because I was an E5 then.
Okay.
And 21.
Living the dream at that point.
Yep, 21, and they said we want, I forget, Jack Daniels, I'll say.
Yeah.
You know, and so I bought a bottle, a fifth, and brought it back to the unit. But they couldn't, the Marines couldn't buy it unless they were E5s and 21.
Okay.
Whereas I could.
Yeah, you could.
Anytime. But you know, so there you did that. But I think I did anyway, if I remember right. When I left Vietnam, you always tell everybody that, okay, I'll send you a bottle of booze. And, you know, when I get home, when I get back to the world, we called it. And
nobody ever does.
Nobody never really did. I think that I did.
Oh, you did?
I do. I think I remember sending a bottle to the unit. Now, whether the unit got it,
yeah,
I don't have any idea. The only thing I did when I got home was I kind of watched. Well, I wouldn't know when I got home. It was after we'd gotten a computer that I went through it and kind of looked up the units I was in and see how they had fared out and whatnot. Because when I got sent to the rear, I was going to fly out in 3 days back to the States.
Like your tour is done.
My tour is done. And Captain Mallard, he was the Marine captain out there, he said, you know, we got in and we had our unit was going to move to like the Ho Chi Minh Trail area. Yeah, scared to death. You know, I got 3 days. I lasted this long. I don't know. Captain Mallard, Doc, get your stuff, throw it on the ground. You're not going. Why not? You're just not going. And so I stayed in the rear for 2 nights, and then I flew out.
So he kept you back because you guys were going home?
Because I was going home.
And he didn't want to?
No, he didn't want anything to go. And Captain Mallard was one of the greatest Marine officers that I ever served with. I mean, they all were good, but he was more down to earth, you know, and we picked on him. Did different things to him, but
and he still liked you.
Well, yeah,
or he
you know,
did his.
But no, I.
So tell us about. I mean, tell everybody about. I guess I don't know the whole story. Grandma wrote a letter. Your mom.
Yep.
Didn't she get after somebody? Didn't she write a
letter
scathing
to?
Letter?
Well, it wasn't as scathing as I thought. I got a copy of it.
Oh, it wasn't quite the story.
Well, she said, "Well, your mom." When we went, I went on R&R to Hawaii.
Yep.
And your mother went.
Yep.
And
you were skinny or something.
Skinny, like 100 pounds maybe. I don't know. Always clogged up, because I'm always clogged up.
What does that mean? Does that mean what I think it means?
Allergies and so on.
Oh, okay. Clogged up that way.
Yeah. And, no, not the other way. No, because I was always scared.
I was afraid of where you were going with that, and then now I brought us there.
Yeah,
so
you
you're
got it.
stuffed up.
Yeah, but allergies and whatnot, and skinny,
Yep. Scrawny.
scrawny,
A little nothing.
basically. And Grandma wrote to my commanding officer.
Your mom.
Yes.
She took pen to paper.
She wanted me, and I can't remember that she felt I should be taken out. He was in in the lines or in the field for so long, and get to the rear, and then he wrote a letter back. I got a copy of.
Who is this anyway?
It's a lieutenant commander
Okay.
in the medical corps. It's a naval officer.
Did he tell you that he obviously?
Oh, yeah.
He
Yeah,
got a
in
letter.
fact,
did he think it was funny?
No.
Oh, he didn't
No.
think it was funny.
Well, he thought it was, he's seen a lot of them, and but he said, "How are you?" I mean, he was concerned.
Okay,
how
so
do
he
you
took
feel?
Grandma's letter seriously.
Yeah, and I, of course, took it as I'm a hardcore combat veteran, not as hardcore as I thought I was, but I've been here for 10 months. I don't want to go to the rear, and.
Even though your mom said to?
I don't think my mother ever knew that I said that. I talked to her, I said, no, I feel great. I mean, it's just, I'm great.
Did they send you to the rear then, or you stayed?
I stayed. I stayed in the field.
But you never told Grandma that you had
Well,
a
I
chance
just didn't
and
get
you said
out.
no.
No, well, I don't think I would have had a chance. I don't know if it would have had a chance or not.
Gotcha. But it didn't feel right.
But I didn't feel right to me. I didn't want to leave my buddies.
Yeah.
Well,
How many people were in that group?
well, it'd be 15 Marines.
15. That's what I thought.
Well, depending on if you had a couple of medevacs, and we had medevacs at time to time, then you might be down a couple of guys, but then they'd always get a new one brought in, and you just take them under your belt and say, hey, this is what it is.
So the new guys coming in, how are they coming from other places, or are some of them fresh?
Some of them are fresh, just right from the States.
What is their mentality when they get there?
Well, the same as what everybody else
out, or
is.
they're kind of just
A lot of them, I think, with some of them, they're macho, and it doesn't really affect them. Others, you don't have them crying. I never seen anybody cry while I was there. I'm not saying nobody did, but you do a job, you know what you got to do, and you do it, and that's where I feel that the military, any branch, they're there for you, and we're a band of brothers basically, and.
You get to know the people so well. I mean, because you're in such terrible situations.
But even like you'll pick on them.
Yeah.
Army, Navy, we're still playing football.
Yeah.
But again, you take it and say, okay, yeah, we're better than you are.
But you don't. I got it.
It's tongue in cheek.
It's like
for
when
the
the
most
kids
part.
are getting after each other.
Yep.
That one's better than the other
That's
one.
right.
They'd still.
The Marines are. Everybody thinks that the Marines are so strong. No, they're trained. If you're going to get into a fight, don't lose. Do whatever you got to do to win, and that's what we are. But with stateside duty and individual American and other allies, no, I don't have a problem. But war zone, yeah. Don't mess with the people.
Yeah.
So
Grandma's writing letters. How did you communicate with the people back home?
Letter.
How often were you writing?
I wasn't writing as much as they wanted me to.
You had other things to go. You had other.
Well, but I mean, I was
at
never even stateside. I mean, my mother.
So even then,
my mother called me at the barracks and.
Chewed
Why
you
aren't
out?
you writing? I'm busy. But no, you don't. And I did have a tape recorder, and I did tape
some letters. Okay.
And we had one, and your brother or your uncle Jim, I think, said it, that they played it. They were playing it at supper. And we got hit. And
during the recording?
And I didn't turn the recording off. I didn't, we're hitting your rifle. Here we go, And they said Jim said, well, yeah, Dad and Mom, they were listening. And all of a sudden, bam! He thought, that was pretty neat, And Grandpa said, I don't know what that was. What was that?
Also, Grandpa just...
So I stopped.
Doing that.
No, I didn't do it intentionally. I mean, it was just... But they wanted to see and hear from you, and it gives them
Well, yeah. I mean, it's so different than what it is now.
But
I guess I don't know what it's like.
Oh, it's
now.
the same thing now, I'm sure.
But we've got a little more connectivity.
Well, you've got that, but then you got your telephones.
How long did it take to get a letter from stateside? I mean, like, so they send it. How many months or weeks does it take?
I don't remember. It would be about a week, I would say,
that's
3,
pretty
4.
fast.
It wasn't bad. Funny story was when I went to Vietnam, my last day home, night home, last date with your mom, and I came home, and I put the car in the garage. The garage was a little kinked, and whatnot. And I hit the side of the garage.
You hit the garage with the car.
Yeah, with the car. And the molding on the garage cracked it, and everything. And straightened it up. And went in the house, and I thought, gee, what do I got to do? Well, it's 12,
What are they going to do to you?
It's 12:30. I'm going to Vietnam. I mean, what's going to happen to me?
You didn't tell them?
No. First letter from Grandpa Hansen. First and only letter.
From your dad?
From my dad, your grandpa.
We noticed the garage.
He said, yeah, just wanted you to know I saw the garage. I told the Viet Cong where you were at.
He didn't say that in his letter.
He did. And I wrote back. I couldn't. No, I didn't. We didn't. But I wrote back. I said, thanks, Dad. We got hit last night. I didn't get another letter from him at all.
That's like Grandpa's sense of humor.
But that was his sense of humor. I saw it. I told the Viet Cong where you were. Just want you to know. And
you'll never hit the garage again.
I never heard that again.
Yeah.
But that was one that I just couldn't help myself, And I thought, what? I hit it before, and you had to tell on rats or something.
Right.
Why would I want to do this now? I'm not going to be back here for a year.
What was the toughest part? The hardest? It doesn't have to be the toughest emotionally. I guess, just, I've never left home. I went to school for a year. That's as far as I've gone.
No.
You've lived through things that I've never even dreamed about walking through. What was the toughest part?
I think I had the worst time in boot camp.
Why?
Just because I was never gone. I never left home.
So you missed home. That was tough.
It did a little bit, and of course you didn't like the surrogate mother, your drill instructor. You didn't like him that well, And
Are they like they are in the movies? Shouting and screaming at you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate.
Yep. And Army and Marines I know would be different, but I mean the Navy too. But they don't yell and scream and holler as much. But no, I mean they're in your face, and they're teaching you respect. They're teaching you everything, and but that I think was the worst. They had signs up: your mother doesn't work here.
Okay.
Or doesn't live here. Clean your own place.
Yeah. I remember you would always talk to us. I've never seen you make a bed, ever. But you would always talk when we were supposed to make a bed that we're supposed to be able to bounce a dime or a quarter off.
Dime on the
So you were able to do that, make a bed. Why did you quit?
Because I got married.
Okay. You're saying that's mom's
I
job?
probably shouldn't have said that.
I don't know if that can air. But
no, I mean...
you probably did make beds, right?
I made beds. I mean, I didn't make a double bed.
Oh, see,
there you go. We're short.
That was way tricky.
I mean, you can't even reach across.
Right.
A bunk.
And you don't want to show up at a barracks and see a double bed.
No.
That would make you think,
what's going on? But a double bed or a single bed, I would have it torn apart when I first got in, and a lot of them did. I mean, again, like your clothes, not being tied with a square knot.
Yeah. Oh, they just tear it apart.
They tear it apart.
So you could put it together and make it perfect. I do remember that you actually showed us how to do that.
Yep, and you have to have that, and then you have to have the hospital or corners. You got folds on the sheets. They have that all, and everything's got to be just right. And your blanket, it's got the USN in my case.
Yeah,
you had to see those letters.
Okay, it had to be perfect.
Don't wad it up. And then you got your locker or whatever with your clothes. They better be hung up the way they told you to. Socks rolled. I still roll my socks up.
Is that why we do that?
I don't know. But
we put them in like little balls.
Yeah, that's what I do. But my mom did that.
Before you got to the military. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
probably
that wasn't just
because
a military
Dad
thing.
was in the Army, and
Because when I show the little sock balls that we make that seem so normal to us, people.
But you have to
like,
have
that's
it
crazy.
set just so where they come together. You got to have the heel, I think it is,
Okay.
sticking right there. So that's where it is.
We're just happy to have a ball, Dad.
Yeah,
we got a ball,
and that's what
socks.
I've got that now.
Okay.
But no, it's teaching respect and teaching how to roll socks, I guess.
Yeah, I can see why that was the toughest part for you. So that was hard. That was crazy. Yeah. Like being in combat. How did you deal with the stress? Or do you just
don't think
compartmentalize it? It goes away.
It goes away.
You focus on what's happening.
You worry. I did anyway. At night, don't let anybody get hurt because I knew what was going to happen, and during the day, you have no problem.
So most stuff didn't happen during the day? It was always
if you're out on a patrol or something, you might. But and again, other places, like we're in a village.
So for your situation.
So my situation, it wasn't really that bad. You don't want to, like we would do exercising, running. You don't want to run the same direction every day and set a pattern. Somebody's going to lay a booby trap for you, or could. But you didn't have a real worry about it. It's when it starting to get dusk is when, okay, here we go again, because you don't know.
How much did you know about what was going on in other
Nothing.
Groups? Okay.
Well, the different units around us.
Yeah.
We knew a little bit because you could get it on the radio. And then we would go out and sometimes we'd have to go on a reactionary force, to get help. And so we're heading that way. You got to run, a couple miles.
Do you always come back to the same base camp or the base?
The village. Okay. Yeah. That's where we did.
So you'd sometimes go out for these little...
Sometimes, not on occasion. But with us, it wasn't a long battle. It might last not even 20 minutes because it's just hit and run. It's hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. We're waiting for you. We're gonna ambush you. Fire some shots and take off. Like I never ran into the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army. They came to play. I mean, if they hit, they're going to be there. And we heard people say that they're in their area, we'd get more ammunition. I don't want more ammunition. I want a big truck here so we can I got 15 people here, but we never got hit.
As the medic, did you feel responsible? I mean, obviously you felt some responsibility for the group. I mean, you're not in command of anything, but do you feel like you got to take care of everybody?
You've got to take care of them. I mean, if somebody gets hit, and I'm not going to go deeply in it, but you're on them. You take your rifle with you. But
you've got to run into whatever.
Whatever.
Do people go with you?
Nope. They're fighting back and shooting. You go by yourself and you just go. You don't think about it. You're shaken afterwards, or at least you were. But you had 3-4 people hit. They're laying down cover fire. You're patching the people.
How do you get people pulled back as one single person, or do other people join you?
If they're out there, then somebody's going to go with you because we used to laugh in the boot camp or when we were practicing. They lay down. Now you got to carry them. Okay, now you're 6'9". I'm 5'5".
100 pounds.
Well, but even in the stateside, I was 150 pounds, 140 pounds. I ain't going to carry you.
No.
You're going to drag along anyway because you're so much taller than me.
Right.
So I mean,
there's only so much people our height can do.
But you do when you get the choppers coming in, and you'd have people, you'd put them in a poncho, and carry them to the chopper and throw them in. Otherwise, they'll come in later and then they'll help. But they will help. I mean, everybody.
Of course,
we're all buddies. We're all
right.
We're all
I
there.
was thinking if they're busy, when they're engaged, with
Right.
whatever.
But then you had to train somebody that if you got hit,
right, they could take care of you or take over.
And I always said to, Sammy was the one, Sammy Sanders, but you're going to be my cover. And if anybody gets hit, 2 people are hit and I'm one of them, I'm first.
That never happened, right? You never got...
No, never got hit.
Anything come terribly close that you thought, oh my goodness?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It was brutal. The other thing that really affects me is when we went to Washington with Gene and Phil.
My sister and her husband.
Your sister, I'm sorry.
You just went to Washington, D.C.?
Washington,
To the
D.C., and then Gettysburg. And Jeannie had said, we're going to see the wall. And I'll bust out. No.
Yeah.
I did. It's
Yeah.
But that you look back on that, and for what? Sacrifices for what?
Yeah.
I don't want to belittle it. I don't want to say, hey, I wouldn't do it again. I would, but
So much. I mean, it affected so many families.
Yep. Well, like even with your mother's,
that's
my
what I'm thinking,
in-laws.
that
Mary Ann with
her
Bob,
fiance.
and I remember I got a call. I was at Pendleton, I think it was, and I got a call, and Bob was killed, and I never saw it coming. Where, why, how?
Yeah.
Hit him at landmine with his truck. Because I always thought driving truck.
Was he was training, or he was?
No, he was in
Vietnam.
In
I
Vietnam.
never understood that. I
And
thought it was
he was. I don't know what he did. I mean, I knew he drove trucks, but he ran over a landmine, and Mary Ann, his dad came over to tell Mary Ann, and then I got orders.
Yeah, and then you got to go.
Yep. And they really didn't know. I mean, they thought, well, we can do this all over again. But
So hard.
it's
What about like things you were proud of, things you did? I mean, just learning the whole medical thing, getting that first knot, that square knot.
The square knot.
I
can still tie that square knot.
What other things, like if you look back, you really feel like you?
I learned. I grew up a lot. I guess is basically what it is. I mean, I've always been footloose and carefree, and you learn some
to your detriment sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Been in trouble with Mom
a
fair amount for that.
Yeah. Now
you grew up.
I grew up and learned not to do it so fast. I mean, work into it slowly. But no, you learned respect. You learned respect for people, higher ups. My mother and dad. I mean, when I got out of the service and came home, of course, my last station was Vietnam, but I got home. Your grandfather and grandmother and my mom and dad, I thought had gotten PhDs.
You thought they were brilliant.
They learned a lot since I was gone. And that's what you pick up on.
Yeah.
People are looking at you, even with your kids, not always, but I mean, they're thinking, now you're older and they're older, but what's he know?
When they're teenagers, we don't know much. As they get older and they encounter life a little bit, they realize we know a little bit more.
You went to college when I wasn't looking. I mean, what is the deal? That's what I learned. I think I grew up a lot because I really didn't care
before.
I mean, I to do what I want to do. We go to
Never
school.
a crazy kid, though.
No, nothing like that. But as far as your mother tells you don't do that,
You were going to do it. Grandma put her hand through a window, banging on the glass, right? Because you were being naughty.
Yeah. And
she actually broke it. She was so
right. And I broke the window. That's what she told her husband.
Technically, because you were being
I was walking down the road to school.
You're probably picking on somebody.
No, I was throwing my lunch bag up in the air, catching it.
Gotcha.
But again, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Yours is kind of a.
Well, Vietnam, Auntie Mill. You remember Auntie Mill?
I remember my aunt.
And she was basically like I was.
She was nuts.
And she sent a care package one day.
Those are the best from Aunt Mill.
And we opened it up, and there was a can of peanuts. It said peanuts, and you rattle it, and it shook, and it sounded like peanuts. I haven't seen a peanut for 6 months. And I opened it up, and boom,
it was one of those snakes.
The snakes come
That's
out.
Aunt Mill.
Three snakes. And I thought, this is good. And so I got my little can, and old Virgil, and a couple other guys went with me, through the village.
Oh, and you gave it to everybody.
To the hooches. And you'd knock on the door. Of course, they don't have doors, so you just walk right in and say, hey, want peanut? And the mama sign come out, and you open up. Never seen it. Ever seen.
Did they think it was hilarious?
Oh, they did. And then they would follow you to the next house.
Just see what happens.
I had the whole village following me.
like the Pied Piper in a way.
Exactly. And it was so
all because of
fun.
Aunt Mill.
Aunt Mill. But again, that's what I would do. That was
you.
Me.
Yeah.
The village chief, he was a known Viet Cong.
Yeah.
You go into his hooch. He's on his little radio listening to whatever, and
did you get him the peanuts?
I got him in there, and he was even in the back of the line.
You wanted to see.
But those are the things I did, and I was always footloose and carefree. But as time progressed,
what was it like coming home? Like you get home, I mean, because there was so much reaction to Vietnam veterans. I mean, it wasn't quite what previously had happened. I have heard from other veterans that they have had problems.
I never had.
So you didn't see that end of it, the ugly side of it.
I heard about it,
but didn't see it.
But I did not see it. They didn't really. In fact, they're treating veterans differently, I think. Yeah, they don't really talk. But I know Hansen Machine, when I was working the guys, I worked there before I went, and after I went, nothing. But then some.
No negativity.
No negativity, though.
Were they happy to see you? Or are they just business as usual?
They were happy to see you.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, I mean, it was just business as usual. Now they're looking at the veterans. They're really, especially this day and age, they're doing a lot, and they should be, I don't say treated like, multi-billionaires, but hey, they're sacrificing.
Well, and you've seen that end of things, and even though you came back, you sacrificed. I mean, obviously, there's a huge sacrifice.
But I look at my experiences there as a life experience. At the time, I didn't.
Yeah.
And when I had my surgery,
heart surgery,
there was a Vietnamese male. I don't know if he was a nurse.
Sure.
But he was a nurse's aide or something, and he got to talking to me, and where he said he was, and I took it as Din Bon, and I was at Din Bon, also, and one of his family members had gotten killed over there, father, grandfather, something, probably a grandfather, and we sat down and talked. Nicest guy, said he didn't know his grandpa, apparently, and it was a pleasure talking to him.
Do you ever stay in contact or see? You mentioned that earlier. You never really saw anybody that you served with.
I never did, never.
No, I do know there was some story when you got back. I wonder how much of this played through. After you get home, how do you leave that? Leave that scenario. I remember that you guys talked about Mom. Maybe you told me we were walking. You guys were walking. I don't know if I was around, but a car backfired or something.
No, that was
jumping in the ditch before you.
That was R&R, and that was in Hawaii.
Okay, so that was okay.
It was in the crosswalk.
Okay,
and the thing that really ticked me off there was my hot dog rolled down the road.
So you're walking with a hot dog, a car backfires.
Yeah,
you bailed.
You haven't eaten a hot dog in 8-9 months. You know, I when we got there, I went to McDonald's, and I hadn't seen a hamburger for 8-9 months, and I bought 2 Big Macs, order of fries, and a malt.
Yeah.
And I ate it all
of it,
and got sick.
Yeah,
but it was just I was just C rations.
Yeah,
you know, and but no, those things like loud noises, not so much now anymore. But yeah, it was a while before.
Now you'd never really ever got into watching any of the movies,
No.
war movies of any kind. You don't really
Vietnam War movies. I don't really watch. I have been listening and seeing, you know, with the wall and whatnot. That wall was something.
Yeah.
And that brought back memories. And you remembered the nights, you know, when you put them on the chopper.
Yeah.
And
you found names you knew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Phil looked it up.
Yeah.
And it was tough.
Yeah.
And they say that it is. And but for people that would be in a whole lot of stuff, it's got to be terrible. Yeah. It's got to be terrible. I wasn't in that much, more than I cared to be in, but I mean, nothing compared to anything. But no, you think about it, especially Veterans Day, you think about it, and you think about families where they didn't make it back. Anybody. Mm-hmm. What do they go through every time, you know? I don't know. In our family, we haven't ever lost anybody in a war that I know of.
No.
Now, maybe somebody might have been at Little Bighorn way down the line, but I don't know of anybody. And Grandpa Hansen, he went to Germany occupation. He captured Germany.
Right. He told you all kinds of stories.
But not a lot. But he wears he kept his boots, you know, and I can still see me wearing his combat boots when I was 4 or 5 years old or younger.
Did you guys talk about it after you got back? About his experience, your experience?
I've not talked to hardly anybody. Well, I didn't at first. Yeah. Dan, in all honesty, I just didn't talk.
Yeah.
I will talk to a veteran, and we can get into it, you know, some things, exchange things that I don't. And it's just, I don't.
Yeah. No.
I will. Now, I think the boys read that citation that I got. Well, that they read it, and with the no, I didn't write it, but you know how many patrols and whatnot.
Yep.
You lived in a village.
Yep.
You lived in the village, and every time you go out, you go to the well, take a shower, you take your rifle, you're on a patrol. I mean, it's because it's a Viet Cong sympathizing village.
When you got back here, like what you're saying. You know, when you got back here, did you ever get to the point where you stopped looking over your shoulder? Or did you got stateside and you just put that away?
No, I looked over my shoulder a lot, if you will. Now, like when I walk around, you know, and do different things, I see more things than I think maybe you do, only just because you're so used to just...
Yeah, I'm kind of a dope.
Well, no, not really. It's just that, you know, you see all of a sudden you see movement. And now after my eye surgery...
Now you can see movement again.
I can't see movement, but there's so many floaters yet.
Oh, so
I'm slapping at bugs that aren't even there. But you always watch for movement. I remember when the little boy next door ran away, you know, Ronnie.
When I was little?
No, you were little too.
Okay.
He
ran away.
He ran away, and everybody was looking for him. The neighborhood was looking for him, and we lived in a dead end street, and with the woods there, and they'd ask. I said, "Well, okay, do you see?" No, I have no idea. They said, "Did you go into the woods?" No, because it was dark. It was like 10, 11 o'clock, and okay, I'll go. I went with your mom. I had a hard time in there.
Yeah.
Because it's a dark trail, and he wasn't in there. But
they found him.
Yeah, we found
Okay.
him. Yeah, he was in their car.
Okay.
If I remember right. But no, I do that. Those things were tough. But that was, I was probably out for maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe at the time.
Yeah, it hangs with you.
And it hangs with it. But I noticed that. And I'm always watching the cars behind me,
Yeah.
rather than the ones in front of me.
No, it's crazy. It's so hard to wrap our brain around, for people who have not experienced that, and there's a lot of people who don't, we don't even have family in the military, so we haven't experienced what you've experienced and walked through, and I'm just grateful that you came here to talk about it. I do want to end with, it has really no relation other than it's about you, and it's a story that I don't know that I've told it on the radio, but I just want people at work I've told, and I don't think they believe me, but you clocked Grandpa playing cowboys and Indians, right? You did the Lone Ranger thing where you hit him with the butt of the gun, right?
No, the handle.
Yeah. You just
the butt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell that. He was like doing what?
Well, he was shooting at my brother Brian. Brian was on my side.
Yeah.
And Mike, my brother Mike, your Uncle Mike, was on Grandpa's side. Jim wasn't around yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old I was. 4 or 5.
Old enough to know better.
Not really.
Okay.
But I had to go upstairs to the restroom. And Brian was in the furnace room behind the door shooting. It was gun.
Little cap guns.
Yeah, little cap gun. Bang, bang, bang. He had a bullet machine.
Oh, yeah. He never ran out of bullets.
ran out of bullets. I mean, And so Grandpa's sitting on the step. And he had a little black cowboy hat on his head, and he's sitting around the ledge or the chair rail or the handrail shooting at Brian. Now, not really shooting for the audience. I mean,
Yeah.
And he was going bang, 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 bang. Mike, I don't know where Mike was.
Yeah, he was
I had no idea. He had glasses on, the cowboys with glasses. They just, he doesn't.
You didn't even pay attention to him.
No, he wasn't. He only had a little Derringer anyway.
Oh, okay.
But Brian and Dad were having a gunfight. And I'm coming down the basement steps.
After relieving yourself.
After relieving myself with my little cap guns on. I think two of them,
yeah.
Double. And I don't think I had a cowboy hat.
All right.
But there's Grandpa.
In front of you. He doesn't see you.
He doesn't see me. His back's to
Perfect.
me. I get my gun out. And I watched it on Lone Ranger, all the time.
Yeah, just thunk him. You whacked him over the head. His little hat crumpled.
The little hat crumpled in the middle.
Did he slump over? Did he turn around?
Oh, he turned around, but he didn't slump over.
Oh, that's awesome. Love that story.
No, I could still see it. I don't think he played Cowboys and Indians with us again.
Well, he had, probably
But, I mean,
dealing with a concussion after that.
Well,
how would you have handled that if I'd have whacked you on the head?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I mean, my
Your training
survival training might have kicked in.
Might have tied my arms in square knots. Anyway,
But,
Dad, thanks for hanging out.
Not a problem.
Telling this whole big story.
Well, don't.
I won't air anything that'll embarrass you. Is that what you're going to say?
No.
Oh, what were you going to say?
I didn't think you were going to air anything.
Oh, no, I'm going to air some of it for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.